I'm an technology policy analyst at Vadvani Institute of Technology and Policy. So the chapter I've written over here, it dwells on internet communication and how it is hampering the pillars of democracy. How do I do that? I do it in two phases. One, describing about uncontrolled internet communication, which dwells into creating filter bubbles. And the other is highly controlled internet communication, which brings perception control. Now, this perception control can be by the state and also non-state actors. So these are two sides of controlled and uncontrolled internet communications. So when I say filter bubble, what is filter bubble? So filter bubble is nothing but, I'll just give an example to make it, to not make it boring. So when we keep on scrolling in our WhatsApp, we get messages. That means we get information. But before that, we have some notions, we have some pre-notions, biased understanding of society. So what if all the information we get only reiterates our biased notions? And continuing that, a herd of people constantly reiterating their own biased narratives of the society, biased understanding of society, this creates filter bubbles. So over here, what happens? The facts are neglected. A true and scientific understanding is neglected. The correct understanding of harmony is neglected. And that is where confirmation bias is turning out into a filter which brings out or which create drugs for democracy. It destroys the pillars of democracy. That's uncontrolled communication. What about controlled communication? Do we have any examples for that? Yes, of course. Spyware. Example of spyware is Pegasus. It can be controlled by the state, it can be controlled by the non-state. But mind, it is more controlled by the non-state. And apart from that, there are instances that I mentioned in the book from Citizen Lab, which is hosted in University of Toronto, Canada. They have documented, they brought scientific proofs from primary research to show that yes, spyware is existing in all the parts of the world, not just in some parts, be it developing countries, developed countries, and also emerging economies, all. They are using it. And the other thing, we have whistleblowers. Christopher Weil, who is a whistleblower for Cambridge Analytica, he has come out with a book. And Edward Snowden, a well-known whistleblower, who has talked a lot about X-key score. It's an algorithm which is used by NSA of the United States to tap the communication of the world. Now see, it doesn't tap the communication of the citizens of the US, but it taps the communication of people across the world. So who is controlling the communication? If I say state, do I say state has a perception control over citizen? Or do I say a state has a perception control over the world? It's a question mark. So these are the issues I delved into. So yes, there are a good number of issues regarding internet communication. I have identified only few. And the world has identified only few. If that is the case, even if we come out with regulations, even if we come out with acts and policies, can we really do justice to this? Question mark. Has our government done anything good? We should agree it has done. It has come out with the DPDP Act. Fair enough. It has come out with draft consultation paper on dark patterns. TRA has come out with that. Fantastic. And it has also got intermediate regulations. Again, good one. These are initial steps. But yet, we need to conduct much more ex-ante research. We do not yet understand the risk of controlled or uncontrolled communications. If we do not understand, we cannot regulate it. Now, much more research is required. Now, how do we do this research? We need to identify the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? State is, of course, the one. Next, industry, yes. And of course, we know civil society or stakeholders. We bring them. I mean, what about the public? When we talk about democracy, when we talk about policy making within democracy, we also need to include public, right? So that is missing again. The more of something, there's a concept called science cafes, where people actually engage themselves in understanding the risks And then people float the policy and say, hey, see, this is what we are going to put forward. You agree with this? Let's ourselves restrict our liberty. So these are few regulations or few approach towards regulations that I've covered in the book. And there are many approaches, and I believe after reading this, people will critically think on the risks of controlled and uncontrolled internet communications.